So, when I was younger,
So much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way.
I really hated going to the doctors. I hated any kind of healthcare setting. I was terrified of when they, stabbed me with needles. I still kind of hate being stabbed with needles, but something obviously changed about my opinion on the healthcare profession for me to want to take up medicine. And I think that was kind of thanks to Grey's Anatomy. I know what you might be thinking, but hear me out. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sadhana. Nice of you to drop by. I don't know about you, but growing up, I had distinct phases of my life where I was so obsessed with a book, a movie, a video game, a TV show, that I made it my entire personality. For example, in year 6, I was so obsessed with Minecraft that I really wanted to be an architect when I grew up. Then I soon realised that architecture is obviously so much more than placing blocks and building pretty buildings. You actually have to know a lot of physics and it involves a lot of kind of intellectual thinking. So I soon abandoned the idea. And then year 7 came along and I started watching shows such as Sherlock, Criminal Minds and The Mentalist. And I was that weird kid who would sit in the corner of the classroom and make Sherlock-esque deductions, and I would have like a little book of all my codes and ciphers, and I'd write down number plates and like weird things that I observed. And I wanted to be a detective or like a code breaker when I grew up. But obviously, as James Acaster so correctly said,
kept it secret. Didn't want to grow up, become an undercover cop, first day on the job, already blowing my cover, running my mouth off all around town as a child.
So I used to tell people that I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And I would say that because at the time, chemistry was my favourite subject, and I'd memorise the whole periodic table because that is, quote unquote, what Spencer Reid would do.
I'm not gonna get up here and bash her like everybody else, but she need a lot of psychological evaluation.
Around the same time, I also became really interested in the human anatomy and the human body. But I didn't want to be a doctor because that is such a stereotypical brown thing to do. Like, actually make my parents proud? I think not.
It's a no from me.
But here we are now, so something obviously changed. In year 10, we moved to the US for a couple of years, and I did a dissection on a fetal pig. Not for fun, I was weird, but I wasn't that weird. This was a school dissection, kind of learning about different systems of the human body. And there we were in the lab, with our lab coats on and like a little silicone gloves and goggles, and we were all given scalpels. I was living my best life, kind of pretending to be Molly Hooper. And I remember my lab partner and I having a discussion on who gets to make the first cut, and she asked me,
Do you know how to hold a scalpel?
and I said, no, do you know how to hold a scalpel? And she was like,
Yeah, I've watched Grey's Anatomy enough times to know how to hold a scalpel. So can I please make the first cut?
and I thought, fair enough, can't argue with that logic. So we carried on and did the dissection. And the whole time throughout that dissection, I kept thinking about how incredible the body was. I could see an actual heart, and I could see that it was connected and worked together with the lungs. It was just so amazing how the body is just so synchronized. I found some sort of hidden beauty in that. Very cheesy, but yeah. So I went home and I really wanted to know more. I was really intrigued about all of this. I could have done what any rational person would have done in that situation and read a journal article or researched online or read a book or something, but I was obviously too cool for school. So I remembered that my friend mentioned Grey's Anatomy. And I was thinking, oh, well, I've never seen Grey's Anatomy. Must be some sort of informative TV show about, I don't know, the human anatomy or how to do dissections. It wasn't that.
Obviously.
I watched it anyway, and that day I watched my first season of Grey's Anatomy. And then something just hit me. I then realised that the medical profession isn't just stabbing children with needles and telling them to eat their greens. It's so much more than that. And the profession is definitely not one to be chosen lightly. I mean, you're dealing with actual lives, and your actions have a chance of positively impacting someone else's life.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And I thought that was really cool. This was so much more than just looking at a TV show and wanting to be like the main character. I was getting hit by reality. And the reality was that in 4 years, I was going to leave school. I had to figure out what I wanted to do in life. Problem was, at the time, all I knew about the healthcare profession I got from movies and TV shows. And I think it's safe to say that they're not the most accurate, might be a tiny bit over-exaggerated and unrealistic. And that's actually probably why work experience is so important in the application stage for medicine. And I know it might be really hard to get work experience right now, but I actually didn't get any clinical working experience until the summer of year 12. Before then, I read books such as Adam Kay's This Is Gonna Hurt, obviously Paul Kalani's When Breath Becomes Air, and I also started listening to podcasts such as the BMJ Sharp Scratch, which kind of gave me an insight onto the lives of medical students. And I'd make sure to kind of read journals and articles from the BMJ, New Scientist, and just general NHS news. And something I found out about the application process is that if you show that you took the initiative to find out more, that says a lot about your character and your motivation to do the subject. I'd also go and pester any healthcare professional that I knew, any family friends that were doctors or medical students. I would just go and bug them, kind of ask them how their day was. Even when I went to the GP, when the GP was like, how are you feeling? I'm like, no, how are you? How was your day? How was the workload? And as much as they probably found me really annoying, it was really useful to kind of get an insight into what the day in the life of a doctor is like. They not only highlighted the positive, but they also highlighted the negative, because it's important to know what you're getting into. And I was so thankful that they did, because now I could kind of mentally prepare myself to know that this is what I'm getting into. And I'm sure I'll still be quite oblivious to what life as a medical student is going to be like until I actually experience it for myself. But it was kind of really valuable to get that insight as well. If you can't do work experience now, you could also possibly think back to your own experience in a hospital, or a family member that you know who was in hospital, and kind of interview them and ask them about how their experience with healthcare professionals were. I remember in year 11, my grandfather was in the hospital, and this was the first time that I'd ever seen someone so close to me in that situation. And that was obviously quite distressing and upsetting. But at the same time, I remember seeing so many wires and machines and different gadgets connected to him. And I was really curious to know what they were. And it was really inspiring to see that the doctor could just walk into the room, look at the numbers on the screen, and look at some things on the chart, talk to my grandfather and assess his condition, and through that subsequently come up with a diagnosis. And it occurred to me that medicine is kind of like being a spy and a code breaker. You have so many kind of different jigsaw pieces, and you're putting it together to reach a bigger picture. And that's something that I kept telling myself throughout the whole application process, that the reason I wanted to do medicine is that it's a puzzle with a purpose. And I would have probably never arrived at that conclusion were it not for Grey's Anatomy. Please tell me I'm not the only one who got inspired by Grey's Anatomy. If you're interested in doing medicine, or you're applying to medicine, or you're doing medicine now, I'd love to know what inspired you to kind of consider medicine. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more content from me, please do consider subscribing. It really does mean a lot. Thank you so much for everyone who's already subscribed. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!